Hello and welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 844. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now!
AKA Negative Camber. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what you got to do. I have special guests for this podcast. And you know, one of the cool things about being included, if you're lucky enough, on the Paul Charsley friend list is you get to actually get much closer to the world of motorsport and sports car racing because you're on the Charsley fan or Charsley friend list. And I am very grateful and humbled to be on that list because Paul always looks for ways to get our listeners and viewers more insight and info into the world of racing. And in that vein, he was kind enough to introduce me to my two guests, two of them today. And I'm super excited. The first guest is Hannah Grisham. And Hannah is originally from SoCal, believe it or not, folks, but she lives in Georgia now. She began her racing career at age 3. I'm not even sure what I was doing at age 3. I didn't know, I didn't know my butt from third base when I was age 3, but she was driving around, riding motorcycles at age 4, racing karts at age 6, racing in Spec Miata when she was 16. In 2021, she raced in the Mazda MX-5 Cup with IMSA, Pacific F2000, Formula Continental with SCCA, and then GP2 in the World Racing League. Hannah has over 800 competitive starts spread across 400 races, if you can imagine that, in cars and karts, and at the club and national level, which is amazing. But there's another thing that's unique about Hannah too, is that she's one of only 2 Pirelli Tyres North America test drivers, and is Pirelli's first and only female test driver in the whole world, which is kind of cool. And so she does a lot of testing and development for OEM and racing tires and motorsport tires at tracks and testing grounds, which is super cool. My other guest is she's way ahead of us in the future. It's actually Saturday morning where she's at, and bless her heart, I don't even know if we gave her time to get through her first cup of coffee, but it's Rianna O'Meara-Hunt. And Rianna has left a complete wake of wins in her karting career in New Zealand. It was one of the first ever junior females to actually win the New Zealand Rotax Max Challenge round. Incredible karting career that she has. She's also the first female pro driver to be appointed in all the Quinn-owned racing circuits in New Zealand, where she's doing a lot of driver coaching, a lot of driving at those facilities as well, and one of only 2 drivers to make it through the shootout to drive a GT4 car, Aston Martin Vantage, in the SRO championship. And that is what brings us all together today. Both Hannah and Rianna share this similarity. They were the 2 female drivers chosen to pilot the number 26 Heart of Racing Aston Martin Vantage in the GT4 series car this season. And, if you remember, Paul and I were talking about this back in the beginning of the year. The Heart of Racing wanted to have a female driver for their GT4 program. And what was amazing about this is they narrowed the field down to just 9 drivers. They had well over 100 applicants, so the competition was incredibly strong, and they narrowed it down to 9 drivers, and out of 9 drivers, only 2 made it, and we're talking to those 2. So these 2 women are incredibly fast, and I'm super excited to invite both of them. Hannah, welcome to the Parc Fermé. Rianna, welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have both of you here and on the show. Now, Rianna, I missed a big chunk of your bio because that's my fault. But I want you to fill in the gaps where I missed, because you obviously eventually made that leap from karting into cars, and you were racing Toyotas, and that was tied to Heart of Racing too in New Zealand. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So I got into my first year of cars because of the harder racing. There was an opportunity where Gabe came over during COVID to kind of stay a little bit safer here in New Zealand. And he decided to buy 3 Toyota 86 cars. And I had the team contact me looking for a driver for one of their cars, kind of said, look, this is the opportunity. You shouldn't turn it down. I was a bit nervous. As I said, it was only my first year in cars. So there was a lot to learn and a lot was learned for sure. But yeah, they gave me my first step into it. And now I'm so grateful to be able to, in my second year, be with the team again and try, prove that this relationship's strong and see where we come out of it.
That's awesome. Okay, thanks for filling in the gap. That was totally my fault that I missed that. Okay, let's jump into some questions. Let's figure out what drives both of you. Hannah's 23, Rianna's 21. We were just saying before the podcast, and my daughter is 21 years old. Now, I will say that she takes after her mom, which I think her mom should have been a race car driver, and so there's like a very aggressive driver, and so that's the one thing she shares with you. But okay, so Hannah. So we'll give Rianna a little chance to wake up because it's Saturday morning, which is, we'll start with you. Tell us about your journey into professional racing. How did you first become interested in racing, and what steps did you take to pursue that career in racing?
So initially I got into racing like a lot of racers because of my father. My dad raced motorcycles, a lot of off-road stuff like Baja 1000 and whatnot. He grew up in Riverside where they, rode motorcycles through all the orange fields and whatnot. So I had always kind of been around it, even at a very young age, and showed a bit of an interest for it. I was a very energetic kid. So my dad, there was an indoor go-karting track near where we lived. So he kind of took me to it to see if I had an interest in it. And I did. So when I was 6, I got a go-kart, and that was kind of essentially it, really. Yeah, I mean, I just love the sport, love going fast, and that subconscious state of mind that you get in when you're driving is unlike anything else to me. So
yeah. So once you get in that zone, you were pretty much hooked.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at first it was definitely like something a bit more kind of fun and like very family orientated that we did, the whole family would come, my grandparents would come, and just me and my dad, and that was essentially it. But as things progressed, racing's a very expensive sport. So my dad was kind of like, if you don't love this, like you can go play soccer for a lot less money. I was like, no, I love doing this. So that was kind of it.
Oh, that's great. All right, Rianna, how did you get started and become interested in racing, and what steps did you take to get into it?
Yeah, mine is pretty much the same story. My dad did racing for fun. He moved from London when he was 18 and found a group of mates here. Obviously, when he grew up a lot, I was probably 3 at the time, 3 or 4. Him and his mate decided to buy a mini challenge car that had just won the series. They wanted to do it together. He'd never stepped foot in a car or a go-kart before. So he just went straight into it. And I grew up around the racetrack going with him and the people that were on his crew. And again, just really loved and enjoyed being at the track. So the guy that he shared the car with did go-karting in Wellington, where I live, and said, oh, you should bring her up to the go-kart track, see if she likes it or not. And funny enough that there was a go-kart on sale that day, and I had a go at lunchtime, and it was mine by the end of the day, and that was pretty much it. We same as Hannah, we traveled the country as a family for 15 years together. We went to Australia for racing and Italy as well for karting. So, it was a really family orientated thing. And I think that's what makes it a little bit better, is that we've become really close from it. And it's always been something that we can do. Obviously now, me going to America, they trying to come to as many ones as they can, but it's a little bit far away. But yeah, that's how we started.
That's awesome. So you both see, I don't feel so bad as a dad, at least, dads play a vital role in daughters' lives just as much. So that's awesome. That's so cool. So you both grew up with the smell of petrol and burning rubber in your lives as young children around your family. That's awesome. So let me ask you a personal question about karting, because I had this moment, not to make this podcast about me, but I've talked about it on the podcast. So Paul, Grace, and I had the chance in Austin to go karting and racing at this karting track. And the one thing now, I grew up when I was a young boy. I had go-karts and motorcycle and stuff like that. And so I'd raced around, where we lived and those kind of things, but I'm not a professional race car driver. And so I'm out there in the kart. Now I'm out there with Paul, and I thought it would be great fun to race Paul, right? So we get started, and he's gone. He's like in a different zip code, you know? So, now, I like to think it's because what's Paul, like 10 stone 5, and I weigh a metric ton. So I like to think that it's because, you know, a weight disadvantage, you know. But what I was noticing in the karting was going through the corners, and I was trying to follow him, and he wasn't drifting through the corners, and he wasn't loose or tight. He wasn't an understeer, but it's that whole slip angle and the feeling as the contact patch skips across the track that is unnerving to people who don't race for a living. You feel like it's not an adhesion, and you feel like that car, like I'm drifting, but you're not sliding through corners. It's just that feeling you get as the contact patch is constantly skipping across the road, and that adhesion. When you were both young and first felt that experience of those karts, where am I out of control? Am I losing it? Or what was that sensation like for you, and how did you guys mentally get through that in karting and say, oh no, that's a normal feeling. I'm in control of the car, even though it feels like I'm sliding through the corners. When did that happen to you guys? When you were very, very young, and that was just part of it, and you experienced and got command of that feeling? And I can start with Rianna. We'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think at 8 years old, you've got a less bit of a fear factor, you know, so you're kind of getting used to what it actually feels like. I'm sure at 8 years old, I wasn't going as fast as I was when I was 10, you know, but
Yeah.
I think there's a point where, yeah, you're just younger, you have less fear, so the consequences don't seem as big to you. So I think getting used to it at a young age is probably the best thing that you can do, because you don't really think about, as I said, you know, the consequences of crashing or what would happen if the cart rotated. But you do get used to the feeling quite quickly when you're pushing the boundaries. And obviously there is going to be points where you do crash or spin out, and you learn where the boundary is. But as I said, yeah, doing it at a young age probably definitely helped.
Yeah. Was that kind of the same for you, Hannah?
Yeah, for sure. I think what Rihanna said was right. You just kind of find that limit and just continue to kind of push it bit by bit. And you kind of, you know, once you push it, then it's like, okay, well, I can go here. So now let's try this. And you kind of just continue that process.
Yeah.
I think also, like, as a kid, we did like a lot of brake drills and stuff like that, where you would like take the cart to the absolute max, maybe when you were practicing. So that also kind of gave you a good reference of what exactly the cart could do. So, but yeah.
Yeah, so it was really trying to explore those limits of the cart and adhesion, and what it feels like when you lose it, what it feels like an understeer, and then what it feels like really just working through rolling speed through an apex and that contact patch skipping across. Yeah, that's interesting. So, Hannah, what was your most memorable racing experience or victory? Can you kind of walk us through that particular race that and what made it so special and memorable? Was there a singular moment in your career coming up?
Yeah, I feel like as a kid, I had one pretty memorable race, which was I won an IKF Grand Nationals, which is like the Duffy Trophy. But I think what made it really memorable was that it was either a year or 2 years previously to when I had won it. I was in the race, and like I had the race won. I had a bit of a gap. I came around for the white flag, and as soon as I passed the white flag, my engine blew up.
Oh.
And that would have been like my first one. And I remember I was like, I was so devastated. Like,
Yeah.
So I think when I did actually win that, for me, like even as a kid, like that was a really cool moment for me. So
Very cool. Rianna, how about you?
Yeah, one that sticks out. I was racing in Australia at the time. It was called a Rotax Pro Tour. So a series that gets you over to the World Finals, the Rotax World Finals at the end of the year if you do well. And I think it was the second round of the whole championship. And I was the first ever female to win this event and win a state title in juniors. So making history at 16, I think, was a really cool experience. Obviously, at 16, I didn't quite realize what I did. And it was kind of just like, oh yeah, like that's cool. But looking back on it now, it's been a very cool thing to be able to do, and also prove that women can do it as well, and put women in their steps to, you know, see like, look, she did it, you can do it. And actually on that weekend, one of my other fellow Kiwi females won the event as well. So we both did it at the same time. So it was really cool.
That's awesome. So Hannah, let's go back to you. Can you share a few key moments or experiences that have sort of shaped your career as a race car driver? Are there any lessons that you learned along the way that you believe were absolutely crucial to your success? Was there, I mean, of course, how to drive, how to brake, how to, you know, where to brake, how to brake early, then, you know, to carry rolling speed. Those are all driving skills. But was there one thing that you kind of learned along the way, in your experience, that shaped your career as a race car driver? That, you know, as I play guitar and I have played guitar for a long time, and as you're learning guitar, you tend to hit a wall of how effective you are. But then there's that moment that you learn something that just, you know, allows you to go bursting through that wall. Was there a moment for you in your racecraft or in a race experience that helped you say, wait a minute, I got it, that really helped elevate your racing career?
In terms of just strictly driving, I do think when I first started, like in Spec Miata, I had never really driven, you know, a manual transmission. So that was something I struggled with, but especially the heel toe part of it. But once I got the heel toe, like it completely like changed everything. Like I picked up so much time once I was just able to get that direct movement down for me.
Wow.
Well, I think like we're always learning, even in this new GT4 car. Like I'm so used to momentum cars. So now that I'm in a car that actually has like some horsepower to it, it's definitely a bit of a different style of driving. So I will kind of have those little moments even now where I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of see this and like realize that while I'm driving. So
That's interesting you say that, because I remember talking to Paul, not on a podcast, we were just chatting one day, and he was telling me that, you know, one of the factors about the driver search that you guys went through is not only just your raw pace, your ability to drive, how you handle the car, how you handle yourself. There's a whole package that they're looking for, but it was also your ability and willingness to learn. Really was a real critical element to that selection. And he said both of you were not only incredibly fast, great drivers, but your ability to take on that information and learn was important. Rianna, was there a moment in your career that kind of shaped your career as a race car driver that, you know, like a lesson that you learned along the way that was crucial to your success?
Yeah, I think exactly what you just covered on is learning how to take in kind of information, what you can do better, and then expel it onto the track the next session. Because for me, I'm quite a shy person when I first meet someone, and going into a shootout process like we did was quite intimidating. I made sure I was well prepared, as prepared as I could be, but really learning how to just be able to not take any offense into what you can do better and know that they're trying to help you improve. As Hannah said, like in motorsport, you're always having to improve. It's a forever changing game. You always have to be better than the next person or better than yourself. You're always chasing that extra tenth of a second. So being able to process what you need to do better, you know, you're kind of getting picked apart all weekend. Like you need to do A, B, C better, and then you get that better, and they're like, okay, you need to do X, Y, Z better now. So it's being able to kind of just put it into two sides and say, yep, I need to do this better, but I'm also doing this well. So just keep going on that path, and you'll be there.
And that's kind of similar to what you're saying, Hannah. It's your ability to take that sort of micromanaging and taking that look at your driving style and those skills and being able to take all that on board to learn that and then apply that, you know, to. And I'm sure that's been a real critical part of your progress as well, as be able to to micromanage, because I'm sure both of you don't get to the level that you're at with that. I'm sure you're your harshest critic, I would imagine, in a lot of ways, about what you've done on track. Oh my gosh, I left time on the table on that turn, or I should have, got off the brakes sooner or carried more rolling speed through here. And I'm sure it's being able to take on those kind of lessons and coaching and being able to then apply it, which has got to be pretty tough, Hannah.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot that goes into it. We're always looking at data. I mean, we spend hours like every weekend just looking at data. And just like you said, every time we come off, we're like, I think we always talk to each other and we're like, oh, I did this or I did that. And,
Yeah.
Now you have the data. Like these days, there used to not be data when we were younger. So it's like now you can really look and be like, okay, yeah, I did do that. And
yeah.
I can gain all this time here and there. And so, yeah, it can be like frustrating at times and like difficult to like also compartmentalize all that and like put it into effect. But again, like it's just kind of the name of the game and something everyone does. So you just have to piece by piece take it and continue to improve and get better at that stuff.
So a question for both of you. Hannah, we'll start with you. As you were coming up through karting, were you looking for any kind of racing opportunity, or I know you're currently driving a GT4 car, so you're going to be biased at that, but were you looking for any particular racing opportunity? Like, I guess the question is, had you started coming up if open wheel single seaters would have had a series and an opportunity, you would have taken that as much as you have taken sports cars? Or was it really in just any kind of racing that you were looking for, or was it in particular sports cars?
Yeah, I think for me, I was like, I just love doing this. And like, whether it be open wheel, whether it be sports cars, like I want to make a career doing this. But I think like as I grew older, like for sure it more shifted towards sports cars because that's just, there's a lot more opportunity than there is in open wheel. So that's just kind of how, it worked out. But for sure, I think I would have taken just about any opportunity to, to go professional race.
What about you, Rianna? Same thing?
Yeah, I think for me being from New Zealand, you think that the opportunity is a lot smaller. Obviously, New Zealand is far, far away. We've bred some amazing race car drivers, but you're so far away from everybody else, you don't really always think that it's feasible to be able to go over to America or the UK to go and do race cars. So for me, it was always sports cars. I've always wanted to do the endurance racing, go race Le Mans, Spa, all of them. And be in IMSA has been the dream since I was little. So it's really cool that we've been given this opportunity now that we're kind of in the midst of it. I've been lucky enough to go to an IMSA race this year already and kind of soak it up with the team, which has been really cool. And I think Hannah and I are aiming to get to one at the end of the year together. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it has always been a dream and it's been cool to be able to kind of involve ourselves with it. We were lucky enough to go to Le Mans thanks to the harder racing this year. So being able to see that firsthand was wild.
That's cool. Well, let's talk about harder racing. So we're talking about how you both managed to be the two drivers selected for the GT4 program out of 100 female drivers or more. Two were picked. You were the lucky two. Let me ask you, Rianna, what was the one thing about driving the GT4 Vantage car that was actually easier than you were expecting? And what was the one thing that was actually harder than maybe you were expecting?
Jumping into a GT4 car from the Toyota series, I thought was going to be this massive, scary jump. But to be honest, it was a lot closer, like a go-kart for me. So because it was only my second year in cars, I'd only driven maybe 3 cars beforehand. It was quite easy to relate it back to what a go-kart felt like and be able to kind of go off those strengths. So for me, it felt like an easier jump, but also then it kind of sounds a bit silly, but jumping in it is like jumping into a spaceship. There's so many buttons everywhere. There's so much to look at. So actually just like realizing what every button does, knowing if I get into this situation, I need to press X, Y, Z. So that was probably the hardest bit for me. It was just being able to kind of ignore everything visually around me and just focus on what I am actually doing in the car.
Was there a particular element you think the technology was probably the more difficult part to get your head around?
Not even just the technology, but just it's quite visually, what's the word? It's quite in your face, you know, going from karting, there's nothing around you, and then you kind of jump into this really expensive car with a lot of technology, and being able to kind of give feedback and then realize, hey, actually, no, I can turn this down in the car or this up, and it's going to make the car react different this way. Instead of just being like, oh, the car's sliding, I'll just have to drive around it. No, like now you can improve it while you're out there. So kind of learning how to do that off Roman and Ian and everybody at the Harder Racing has been a really cool skill to learn. But it was definitely the hardest bit about jumping and driving it, for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Hannah? What was easier than you thought it was, and what was maybe harder?
I completely agree on it was a bit overwhelming for sure, especially like that first time getting in. It was just like Rianna was saying, just like buttons everywhere. Like, you know, you have this big halo seat. There's just so much going on. Coming from like a Porsche Boxer or a Spec Miata, where it's just kind of like you're just sitting there and there's like one button maybe that goes to the radio, but now you're looking at, I don't know, 20 plus buttons. And yeah, like Rianna was saying, that's still something we're working with, like figuring out how to best utilize, you know, the traction control and the ABS and all these different settings that you can just very easily change right when you're driving. As for the easiest thing, that's a difficult one. I don't know. That is a difficult one. I think maybe just the aero, I guess, maybe was the easiest. I guess I kind of expected like learning to deal with more of like an aero car, even though I know it's not a lot, would be a little more difficult, but I feel like I haven't struggled with that too much. I don't think either of us really have. So
was the grip levels quite a bit more, so it was a little easier to throw through corners or get the car to rotate a little bit more?
Yeah, yes and no. Like, again, going back to the very different driving styles, like, I feel like coming from momentum cars, you really are just, like, on the ragged edge, like, every corner, you're just, like, throwing the car in, like, carrying as much speed as possible. But then this car, like, I feel like we've both kind of found, like, it works a bit more, like, when you underdrive it a bit. So
interesting.
It's just different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of driving stuff, so when I think back to like karting and junior series, I typically think of sprint races, right?
Yeah.
But for some of these GT4 races, they're long. And how hard was it for both of you to adapt your driving style to now having what I would call car sympathy, right? To make sure, let's say Hannah was in the first stint, and so you're driving and you got to jump out and make sure that Rianna doesn't have an incredibly long brake pedal, right? So how have you had to reflect on your driving to have car sympathy, to protect that car, to manage that car? You know, you're going to put on new tires, but you may have double stinted those, you know, and how does the endurance racing, was that a big change for you? I guess we could start with you, Rianna.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, we're at a much smaller level. So our races are only an hour long. So we get half an hour each pretty much. It depends. Nate, our engineer, will split the session up to what he thinks is best, depending on what he thinks other teams are going to do, how our best pit stop strategy is going to work. So for definitely being in the first stint, you've got to kind of fight that urge of if there's a car 10 car lengths in front of you, you know you're probably not going to catch him unless you're 5/10 quicker than him, right? So if you've got a good gap behind you, it's about managing both of those gaps. So you're not losing to the person behind you, but you're not overdriving the tire. So when Hannah jumps in, she's got all the tire left to go and race and be as aggressive as she can be. It is hard to fight that urge, you kind of driving the best that you can be without using excessive amount of tire. So we've been kind of driving that first and on a bit of a higher traction control, so we don't slide the car as much, which does make the car a little slower. But it's all about thinking about the long game, right? Yeah, you can go out and you can do the best time of the session, sure. But then when Hannah would jump in, she's got nothing left to play with and we're just a sitting duck. So
Yeah. You got to make sure, Hannah, that when you get in, you got to give it great guns, but you got to have some tire left. You got to have some brake left, right?
For sure, yeah. I think the management of the tires has been a very big factor for sure. And I mean, we've had weekends where it just kind of depends with, all the different manufacturers where maybe we don't have the best one lap speed, but at the end of the race, we might be a lot more competitive than some of our other competitors were. So yeah, I think it's all about whoever drives first. We kind of just have to be a bit nice to the car. And then once you're that second driver, it's kind of just free reins to, go as hard as you want towards the end there.
Speaking of that, and I'm curious if your involvement with testing so many different tire compounds with Pirelli, does that give you a little bit of insight to how those Michelins behave? And can both of you feel when you're overdriving a tire? Do you feel it in just grip level? Is there other things that you can feel within those tires where you may be overdriving those tires, or they may be going through a graining session or degradation that's higher than you want?
Yeah, you can definitely tell. I think especially like as you move up into faster cars and you're on a full slick tires, like they can only take so much. So you can definitely feel as, the tires are falling away from you. And it makes a difference. No matter what the brand is, it's going to make a decent difference on your times and how the car is feeling. So you have to really be cognitive about it and also like proactive, in being nice to the tires a bit. Plus the thing is the tires we race on are the ones we qualified on as well. So even like when we're qualifying, if we get our first good lap is like, we're like, that's good. I had a draft. Like, it's not going to get any better. We bring the car in immediately because we want to save as much tire as possible for the race.
Yeah. And in that case, I guess, as Hannah said, Rianna, managing those tires, I'm sure your entire career, whether it was karting or in Toyotas or now in GT4, tire management is a big part of your racecraft. And being able to manage tires and have the tire left and have, not just chew them up and tear them off. Anybody can jump in and set in hot laps, but it's understanding managing that hour-long race or managing your stint to where you've got enough tire left. Has that always been a part of your racecraft, is always tire management?
I think to an extent it has been, but not to what we have to do now. Through karting, I went into classes that had a lot stickier tire where you didn't have to do that tire management. Like I went to the Rock World Finals in Italy, and some of the rich guys were putting on new tires every single session, until race weekend. And then it became to the pre-final, and you've got the oldest set of tire you're going to have all weekend, and they're 25th because they don't know how to drive on an old tire. So I think you definitely do feel when the tire is starting to disappear, but also talking about the technology we have on our screen, we've got our tire pressures. So we're always looking to kind of warm up our tires to a specific pressure, and then we know we can pretty much go until it gets to a higher tire pressure, without kind of explaining what it is and giving it away. But you really do have to drive to that mark, and as Hannah said, if we haven't got a lap in qualifying by lap 4, you have to give it up because we need to save the tire.
Yeah.
And there is the pressure about qualifying. You know, you do have to be able to go out there, warm your tire up. You have 1 or 2 laps, and then that's it. You know? So, yeah, it is hard. It is hard, but being able to learn that now in an hour race is going to be so beneficial for when we go out and we start doing, you know, the 6 to 12-hour races, the 24, what we dreamed of since we were a kid.
Right. Hannah, you mentioned analyzing the data, and after a race that you guys do, I'm assuming you analyze the video and video footage, and you analyze, because the team's harvesting a lot of data off that car. And then do both of you, and we can start with you, Hannah, do you both sit down and look for areas of improvement with the video and the data in particular, and with limited running time? How do you then incorporate that feedback that you get back into either your training or future races? I mean, some of that data is going to be very track specific, but is there global information that then you can take out of that and apply it at the next race or the next track? Is that kind of the process you go through post-race?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's kind of like you're saying, there's like smaller points that may just be kind of like focused on that track. But I think like, for me at least, like there's been a kind of a general trend also of like bigger things that I've had to work on, which is like kind of underdriving the car and like being able to utilize the peak of the tire in qualifying, or just things kind of that nature, like bigger things that are a trend throughout kind of all of the races we've had. So yeah, like you said, a little of both, I guess, would be the right answer.
Yeah. Is that kind of the same for you, Rianna?
Yeah, I think for me, it's always a little bit different because every track I'm racing at, I'm learning on the weekend because I haven't raced there before. So it is a big step for me from the start of the weekend to the end of the weekend. I do have to absorb a lot of information and take a lot of, I guess criticism is the right answer, like they want me to be better. So there is track specific things, but as Hannah said, we both have things that we need to work on every place that we go. Whether it be leading off the brake quicker or turning in slightly earlier because we always turn in a bit late and we're too hard on the tire. But I think it is also really easy, kind of as you said, when you first asked the question, you said, do you focus on things that you have improved on? I think it's quite easy to forget about that and be very hard on yourself. So I do, at least, and I know that Hannah does, we do take the opportunity to be like, okay, yeah, I did improve on that. So you are in the right direction, but now this is the next thing that you need to focus on,
Yeah. Obviously being a race car driver is pretty physical, and I'm sure you guys, have to go through training. You probably do a training regimen that you guys personally do on an individual level. But I'm curious about the mental side of that. When you talk about race car drivers, they all do. Formula One drivers, they all have these, fitness routines they're going through and these reaction times. You always see Pierre Gasly with the tennis balls, dropping those and trying to catch them. And, there's all these physical things. But what about the mental side of that? How do you guys get focused, get in the zone, keep yourself mentally up, charged? To your point, Rianna, when you're looking at data, you're finding all these little areas you can improve. It would be easy to get down on yourself. Oh, man, why can't I get that right? Or why can't I get that braking zone right? Or I'm not carrying enough speed into the corner. How do you mentally prepare yourselves? And I guess we can start with you, Hannah. How do you mentally approach your training and get yourself mentally in that zone?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that racing, like just in general, is more mentally challenging than it is physically, at least in my opinion. Unless maybe you're in F1 or something, then it's pretty physically challenging. But yeah, I mean, mentally you have to be very strong. But there's a lot of like tools and techniques that I've kind of learned and that you can apply to things, like visualization, essentially, like before getting in a car. I mean, there's all sorts of little techniques, but yeah, it's a challenge for sure, because especially jumping into this season, like for us, like it's so kind of different than what we're used to. It's like a new car, new team, new teammate, of course, new tracks for Rianna in particular. So you really have to be able to keep, I guess, like cool or calm. So it's difficult.
Yeah. So Rianna, do you ever get the red mist?
Yeah, for sure. I work hard not to. Past year, I think now I've worked quite closely with a sports psychologist. So being able to kind of, I always have a meeting with him a week before our race. So we talk about what went well the previous one, what I think I could do better mentally, any areas that I've been felt frustrated on, whether it's with my driving or communication or whatever it is. We kind of I rant to him pretty much for about an hour and get it all out there. And we focus on strategies for me to kind of come back to if there's something's gone wrong or I need to calm myself down. So for me, I have a pretty set car routine that I will go through before I jump in. So it's little things. I get changed an hour before we go out. Then we have our pre-session meeting. I'll go and look at all my track notes for about 10, 15 minutes. I'll then get to the car, I'll chat to the team, I'll have a bit of a joke and a laugh, and then I'll hop in, look at my notes again, and then be pretty much set to go. It's even down to the same, I put on my gear the same way every single time. It's having those kind of safety nets that you go back to and feel like, yeah, no, I'm pretty much in the zone, like I'm ready to go. But I think working with a sports psychologist has completely changed my mental game. I used to be quite, I guess, not as mentally strong as I am now, because now I have ways of coping with it, and that's probably half of the reason why I was able to get this scholarship, because I didn't get too in my head about how I was going or anything on the weekend. So yeah, learning new tracks has been difficult every time I've gone out as well. But I'm getting better at it. As Hannah said, visualization is a key point. Unfortunately, I've got a visual dyslexia, so I can't do that. So it's working ways around that. So it's finding what works for you. And as Hannah said, she's picked up key things by just learning it herself. I've gone out and found someone that can fast forward that for me, just to make me feel more comfortable, pretty much.
Yeah, well, Jackie Stewart, he knows a thing or two about driving, and he used to say all the time that he felt that a lot of the Formula One drivers really need sports psychologists to really help, accelerate that mental portion of that. Do you find, Hannah, that a routine helps you? Is there a routine that a consistency in your routine helps set that zone and get you in that mental space, or does a routine help you?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think usually pretty immediately after we get out, we go and look at our data. But like I've kind of learned, like after we look at the data, like to kind of almost throw it away in a way, if that makes sense, because I have a tendency to like very much overthink things. So I think about them to a certain extent, and then at that point, I kind of say, okay, it's time to go do something else. And then usually right when we're about to get in the car, I kind of just like very quickly will just like kind of almost bullet point what I need to do. And then again, like then I go get in the car, like I just kind of like breathing exercises, and then it's kind of just about staying in that subconscious state of mind when you're driving. So like I do have like a certain thing that I do, like if I come out of the subconscious, like I have a certain thing where I like grab the wheel to like put myself back in it essentially. So yeah, but it's kind of just like pre-programming everything so that when you go out there, like you're ready.
Yeah, it truly is a battle of the heart and mind in a way. You get out there and somebody bangs you, I'd be furious. I get the red mist like instantly, but you can't, and it's going to be tough. What's as you guys have got into racing and you've worked up to the GT4 ride, there's no doubt there's been groups, people, sponsors, family members. Can you describe a little bit for us about the teamwork and collaboration involved in racing. How important is it to have a strong relationship with your team, including like your engineers, your mechanics, the other support staff, and then the other professional drivers, be it Ian or Paul or Roma or any of those. Hannah, how important is that teamwork and that collaboration to you as a developing driver?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's everything. I think we're really lucky, and I know Rianna can touch on this as well about like what a great team this is. Everyone like loves each other and gets along so well, and like I think it just makes the team better. It makes people want to do better, and from every standpoint. But yeah, it's been great. Even stuff like having Roman there has been so nice for us to help us with data and like have somebody that we can really like push ourselves towards. Like, so it's been great. But just overall, it's huge. It's so important.
You feel like, Rianna, you've got a lot of internal champions inside that team that are pushing you, that are cheering for you and helping you along the way?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the team is family, These are the guys that are making sure your wheels are tight or looking at your data saying, you need to do this, this, and better. They're always pushing you to be better, pretty much. And you have to have a good relationship with them. Otherwise, they're not going to want you to do as well as you want yourself to do. So creating that relationship and really nurturing that relationship is so important. And that's a big part of the harder racing is everybody's family and you get along and it is just like, you want to have fun on a weekend as well. Obviously there's time to be serious, but everybody has a laugh and everybody has a joke with each other. And it's a really nice community and team to be a part of. Not many teams are like this, and I think a lot of people can kind of take some key notes off us and realize that it's a really good way to go about it. But as I said before, you do need to have those relationships to keep something alive and to keep the future looking bright for you in that said team. So it's important to be able to be one with them. And it has been a way that I think even Hannah, but for me personally, I've gone through racing. I've had people that I trust and that I'm confident by, people that are like family. You kind of hire to come and driver train you or be a mechanic for the weekend. You really form those relationships because these are the guys that you are pretty much trusting with your life.
Yeah. I would imagine it's similar for you, Hannah, growing up in sort of that grassroots, having family and friends there, assisting you, being that support for you, has been essential. I got to think for your racing career, but it's nice to come into the harder racing where that continues. It's just at a much more professional level.
Oh, for sure. I think like harder racing kind of does it like no other team really does, like Rianna was saying a bit. There really is like a family there and everyone has a good time, just like Rianna's saying, as well as, they also want to win. So, but yeah, for me, I mean, growing up, it was always like a family kind of thing. So I think that's like a key part for me. And I think it's also what makes this sport so great is that you do meet a lot of really amazing people along the way.
Yeah. Hannah, what advice would you have for other young girls that are getting into racing? Maybe their moms got them into racing, or their dads, or other family members, or maybe they just, fell in love with the sport themselves or were really interested. What kind of advice would you give?
It's always a hard one. I know it's like a bit cliche, but just keep pushing through. Like, it's a really difficult sport, like no matter if you're a girl or a guy, but you just have to be, you just can't give up at all. You just have to push through and, knock down the walls. So,
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Rianna?
Yeah, I think similar, it's a sport where you do just have to believe in yourself and you have to believe in the dream and make something work for yourself. It's all about trying to improve every time you go out or looking back on your notes, see what you did last time and kind of go off that and keep improving. If you need to go find someone to driver train you or get you that next step, do it. But it's never giving up, and it's always believing in the dream and following people that you think kind of relate to your dreams and your goals, kind of create a pathway for you. So yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest challenges you think you face as a race car driver, both maybe on or off the track? How do you overcome some of those challenges and maintain that motivation, Rianna?
I think one of my biggest flaws is being so hard on myself on and off track. You know, you want to be able to present yourself the best way you can whenever you're at the track or you're on the track. So kind of reflecting and coming back off what you said, you know, going back to the routine or being where you're comfortable, really making sure that we are doing the best we can all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we all have dragons we all fight, right? And nobody really knows, you know, those challenges. What about you, Hannah?
Yeah, I think like one of the biggest challenges I've faced in the sport, like since a kid, is like the financial aspect of racing cars. I mean, I think as everyone knows, it's an extremely expensive sport and just continues to get worse. So I think that's something I've always had to just, you know, figure out a way, you know, to get in a car. And like there's been years where, you know, I wasn't in a car for half the year, but thankfully, like I figured it out. So I think personally, like that's probably one of the hardest things I've faced. I mean, there's a lot of things in this sport that you face, but I think that's a big one.
It is, and it doesn't really stop just at the driver level. That, I mean, those challenges that you just said, finding the resources to get into a car that's smart, you know, those are the same challenges that Ian would face or a team would face, trying to find those resources, to find the best drivers, to have the resources, the tires, the fuel, everything that goes behind that team is so driven by that capital, right? To do that. Rianna, what were you going to add?
I think, yeah, going off what Hannah said, you know, being able to, because obviously money has always been an issue, you know, you need to be able to find money to be able to do what you want to do, but it's learning how to approach big companies or massive people in your country, going up and saying, look, yeah, I'm a 21, 23-year-old female. Can you believe in my dream like I believe in it?
Yeah.
You've kind of almost got to sell it like it's a part of what they want to do, and learning that at a young age is really important. Being able to kind of create more people skills. It's an intimidating thing to do, you know, approach people for money. It's not a comfortable subject. Not at all. Yeah, learning how to do that and how to kind of approach the situation and brand yourself is really important and a good important.
It's such a good point, Rianna, and it's you know, not everybody's born an extrovert. I'm not an extrovert. I'm actually an introvert. I play an extrovert, and I can out extrovert extroverts, but it sucks the life out of me. And I've been podcasting on Formula One for 17 years, and there's other new podcasts that started a year ago that are huge, and people ask me, it's because I'm terrible at selfless, you know, self-promotion. I'm terrible at that, but it's what it takes in racing sometimes to be able to go and confidently say, you know what? I need that support. I need those resources. And that's got to be difficult if you're not an extrovert to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So let's have some fun, shall we? Let's get to know you on a personal level. Let's do some rapid fire questions, and we're going to find out a little bit more about Hannah and Rianna that maybe you want to share. So all right, Hannah, I'm going to start with you. What are you currently listening to on your Spotify?
Oh gosh, everything. I'd say my favorite is, I'm a huge Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. That's just around and like very nostalgic for me, so always have that playing.
Okay, very cool. Rianna, what are you listening to?
I'm a big New Zealand girl, you know, a bit of 660, kind of that chilled music, a bit of Sticky Fingers. That's kind of what I'm listening to at the moment. Well,
I'm a huge Neil Finn fan. Is it required by law that you have to like Neil Finn in New Zealand?
Funny you say that. I actually had to Google him this morning to find
I sent an email to both of them, and I said, well, I'm a huge Neil Finn Fin, you had to Google him. That's so funny. Well, he was in a band called a Crowded House before, but
Yes,
yeah,
I did.
huge.
I know one of their songs. One of their songs.
Yeah, right. That's so funny. I'm showing my age there. Okay. So, Hannah, what's your favorite food?
I love seafood. Really, just any kind of seafood.
Okay.
Sushi, poke, sashimi, whatever it is.
Oh wow, Rianna, what's your favorite food?
Yeah, I'm the complete opposite. I hate seafood, but I love Italian. Italian is my kind of go-to.
I'm with you. I'm right there. Italian's my favorite. So, are you both pretty close to the same size? So, when you've got to jump in and out of the car, it's not a big adjustment with the wheel position pedals?
I'm a bit like taller and bigger than Rianna, so
okay.
Rianna has like a seat insert that she has to put in.
Okay.
But it usually goes pretty smoothly for the most
Does it?
part. Yeah.
Okay. And the pedals are okay for both of you?
We also have to change the pedals.
Do you?
Mine are like a bit farther away because I'm a bit taller. So we have a few adjustments we have to.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Okay. Rianna, what's your favorite driving shoe?
Driving shoe. At the moment, I am using an OMP, but I use Stay Belt at home, and I'm loving the Stay Belt stuff.
What about you, Hannah?
Yeah, I have a Sparko right now, which is good, and I've also in the past had a lot of the Stay Belt, and I like them a lot as well.
Do you? Okay, interesting. Hannah, what brand of helmet do you use?
I have a Bell.
A Bell. What about you, Rianna?
All right.
Oh, you're going to make Peter Windsor happy. He's a big Arai fan. That's interesting. Okay. So, and you both have really done a lot of art on your helmet to make you stand out?
I have. Yeah, I've got a personal design. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Hannah, you got some exciting stuff going on in your helmet?
Oh, mine's pretty plain. It's still just like... still exactly how it came out of the box, essentially. I just put a colored visor on it and called it a day. So,
oh, that's funny. Did Paul give you a hard time about that?
Yes, he did.
Okay, good for him.
He told me I need to make it my own.
You do.
I can tell who's getting in the car.
When you're walking down the pit lane with your helmet on, I need to know, oh, that's Hannah. Look, that's Hannah. Yeah, exactly.
See, but my argument isn't with all the painted helmets. I feel like just everything else. Black.
Kind of cool as Hannah, yeah.
Yeah.
Stands out in its own way. So.
Okay. Well, that no brand is your brand.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay. It's a minimalist approach, Hannah, but I love it. That's great. Let's see. Okay. Do Rianna? Do you watch Formula One?
I do.
Do you, Hannah?
I do. I haven't been great about it lately, but I do watch it. I can.
Yeah.
Okay. Boy, that was a safe answer for this podcast. So who's Rianna, who's your favorite team and or driver in Formula
One? Look, I am quite biased, obviously McLaren.
Of course.
The New Zealand heritage. But I'm also loving what Fernando Alonso is doing right now.
Ah, nice. Fernando. What about you, Hannah?
I'm gonna have to agree on Fernando. Team-wise, I don't know if I really have a favorite team.
Yeah.
To be honest, I really don't.
Okay. See, Paul's not a team guy. He's a driver guy.
Yeah.
So for him, he really likes individual drivers, and I'm a big Ferrari fan, as you can tell behind me. But yeah. So of the drivers, you both like what Fernando Alonso is doing. So do you like Charles Leclerc, Lando, the young guns coming in?
I think my favorite is Kimi. Even though he's not racing.
Oh, wow. Kimi. Really? Okay.
His attitude, it was,
yeah.
I don't know, it was fun. It was different. So
it was. I love it. Leave me alone. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. Is Paul as much of a pain in the butt for you guys as he is us?
No, of course not. He's an angel.
Okay. Good.
Always an angel.
Okay.
Yeah.
I joke. I love Paul. Grace and I love it. But we give Paul a hard time all the time. And you know what he's known for over here? This is him.
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charsley, the International.
He's known as the International on the podcast.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one and say, hey, Paul, the International.
The International, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of funny. All right. Have either of you ever met a nicer guy than Ian James?
A nicer guy than Ian James.
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that question.
No, I guess not.
He's a pretty nice guy, isn't he?
Oh, he is. I remember like race 1, I started, and like of course it was like our first race, so it's like nerve wracking, and I like completely got taken out by somebody in like turn 1, and I remember Ian just like when I came in, I was like pretty upset, and he just like fist bumped me and was like, yeah, like got that out of the way or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
like I feel a little better now, you know?
Yeah.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah, he's a super nice guy. I've interviewed him several times, and he just always came across as just really super nice, easy to talk to. The thing I found interesting about him from a race car driver is very empathetic, not just sympathetic, but has a lot of empathy, I think, which is kind of rare. So does Paul. Paul's got a lot of empathy in that space too. I thought that was interesting.
Sorry, just to go off that, I think Paul and Ian are always the first people to come up and say, well done, you know, even if they're racing a good plan, they're always the people that are right behind you every step of the way. So it's,
yeah, I think, you know, Paul, you know, Ian's, you know, he's a pro, and he's seen the highs and lows of racing, of course. But I think keeping the drivers in a very positive mind frame, even when things don't go well, is important, you know, to keep you both in a positive frame of mind, I think. And certainly Paul talks about that. And a lot of people don't know that about Paul, just how critical he is in driver coaching and driver management. And you know, he's seen a lot and done a lot in his career. Rianna, what's your favorite racetrack? Whether you've driven it or not, what's your favorite racetrack? Are you going to say Panorama?
Yeah, Bathurst.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always been a dream. Obviously you've got like the Le Mans and the Spas, but Bathurst is just...
It's your favorite?
It's just something else. Yeah.
What about you, Hannah?
That is a hard one. I've only driven Laguna once, but I loved it.
Did you?
But I also will echo Bathurst is like one of my dream tracks to drive.
Is it?
So unlike
that's awesome.
anything else, so.
In the States, Hannah, have you driven Elkhart?
Road America, yes.
Yeah, did you like it?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Have you driven Road Atlanta?
I have, and I do. That's another one of my favorites.
You like it a lot?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Has Paul ever insisted that you both eat curry with him?
Yeah.
Has he?
Yeah.
See? There you have it, folks. It's not just Grace and I that have to... Well, see, Grace loves curry. I hate curry. But we went to Austin, and he made us go eat curry. And so he's a bully, that Paul.
We've like made it... It's a tradition now. Like,
is it?
And, you know, we have to find the local, you know, Indian spot and get some curry.
I knew it. He's poisoned you. But you both like a good curry, though. I take it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I don't mind it.
Okay. All right. Have either of you downloaded a game from Valve's Steam platform and played it?
Well, I mean, on iRacing, you do have to like kind of download Steam. So I do have it in that way.
Okay. All right.
You know,
that might be important. Just saying. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
So in case Gabe ever checks, you know, I got Steam on my laptop.
Yeah, I have it.
All right. Okay. All right. Rianna, what car do you drive at home?
I drive a little Mini Cooper S.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Nice. What color?
Gray and black.
Nice. Go fast black. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Hannah, what do you drive?
I drive a white Volkswagen Jetta.
Nice, a Jetta. Look at you.
Yeah.
Do you have Pirellis on it?
Controversial.
Okay, if you don't, all right. You don't have to answer that. Don't.
No,
answer
I
that.
don't.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
But,
all right.
You know, in my like defense, they were free tires.
Oh well, yeah. You got to go with it.
Like I couldn't say no to free tires.
No, you can't. Yeah, free.
I would have put Pirellis on there, but
yeah,
they were
of course.
Free, the other ones, so.
Okay, you can't argue with free. Rianna, what kind of boots do you have on your Mini?
Whatever it came with.
Good for you. Good for you. Because you know what that says, Rianna? It doesn't matter what the hell's on your car. You're going to drive the hell out of it anyway.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, very good. Let's see. Have either of you ever raced Paul in karts?
No.
No.
Okay.
We always talk
Could
about
we
it.
could we make that happen and you guys could kick his butt for me?
No,
because-
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We wanna do it. We wanna go for a team go-karting sometime.
Yes.
We're yet to find a time for it, but we're gonna make it happen.
Okay, I need you guys to redeem me because I raced him and he finished in a different zip code, a different postal code for me. He just blew me away and I need redemption. So if you guys make that happen, you have to send me pictures of you beating Paul. Because he's pretty handy in karts, you know, he's pretty good. Hannah, where would you like to be in your career in the next 3 to 4 years?
In IMSA at Le Mans.
At Le Mans? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like that's.
In a GT3?
Yeah. I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Rianna, how about you?
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I want to be doing the IMSA races, going into WEC, you know, doing Le Mans, doing the 24.
Yeah.
GT3 is obviously exactly where I want to go, but if there's an opportunity in LMP3 or LMP2, you know, like that would be awesome as well. So.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then it's hypercars next for you, right? So that would be good. That would be great.
More of a spaceship.
Yeah, right. I'd love to see you guys in the GT3 cars. That would be awesome. Okay, so what's up for both of you? What's your next race?
Road America, and we have a bit of a break. It's I think 4 or 5 weeks until we go. And then,
Okay.
Yeah, then it's Road America, and then Sebring, and then Indy.
Okay. All right, cool. So Road America. Rianna, have you driven Road America yet?
None. Driven no track. So every track I go to is completely new.
Okay. All right. Well, you're in good hands with Hannah, though. She's driven it.
Exactly.
Yes,
So-
I've
so
ridden
she-
it once, so.
Yeah. And Paul's driven it. Yeah. So Elkhart's fun, Rianna. You'll like it. It's a good track. It's a good track. Okay, so where can people find both of you? Is Instagram your main social media outlet?
Yeah, I would say Instagram
Okay.
is probably the main. And
See, you guys are just on the cusp of being millennials or Zoom, you know, Generation Z. I thought Gen Z. Now, Rianna, you're 21. My daughters, you're Gen Z. What are you doing on Insta? I thought you'd be on Snapchat and TikTok and not Insta.
No, for sure. Instagram is my comfort zone. So yeah, Instagram, a little bit of Facebook, but not too much.
Yeah, that's for old people like me. All right, so Hannah, what's your Instagram? How do you find you on Instagram?
If you type in my name, it's just Hannah Grisham Racing. So you can find me on pretty much anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Rianna, where do we find you on Insta?
Yeah, mine's the same. Rianna Racing. Nice and short.
That is nice and short. Excellent. You guys, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. It's been delightful to meet both of you. I know you're both incredibly fast drivers. Paul's already told me that, and he's super excited about what you guys are doing. I couldn't be happier to have you both on. I hope you guys will come back on. I may chase you down, Hannah, to have a tire talk with you about Pirellis. I'd love to know more about that. Rianna, I want to talk to you again too about your challenges and your trip over to America and all us crazy Yankees over here. You know, we love. Just to let you know right up front, we have lots of listeners in Australia and New Zealand, and we love Kiwis. And you live in the land of Rohan, all the Lord of the Rings fans. We all think you live like in Hobbiton down there. So it's awesome. And would love to have you guys back on and to talk about racing. But thank you both so much for coming on. And we look forward to chatting with you again. Thanks.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.